Okay, so uh, oh, so towards the end of the last lecture, we started talking about a little bit of statistics, and I gradually are entering into the area of statistics. So if we recall what we have done in the entire course, like we talked about random variables, and then we said that there are two functions which are associated to a random variable, and those are density function like PDF and CDF, so cumulative distribution function. These two functions can help us to predict the property of this variable in a probabilistic sense. And of course, when we define random variables, so we said, okay, there is an associated random experiment, and this random variable, this measures some property or something about that random experiment. And yeah, and then we said, okay, there are two parameters which will characterize the random variable. Actually, we talked about mainly three parameters, which is expectation, which you denoted as mu or mu x, and we talked about sigma square, which is the variance, or sigma square x, and sigma, which is the square root of the standard deviation, which is the square root of the variance. So, and then we said, okay, we can have a pair of random variables x, y, and we also have studied what is called the covariance and the product mean, and yeah, and the correlation coefficient. And we also talked about when we say a pair of random variables, so they measure two different things about some random experiment, and we talked about when they are independent. Okay, so they're basically independent when we can write the joint PDF as a product of the individual PDFs or the marginal PDFs. So we talked about joint PDF or joint cumulative distribution function, and then we talked about independence. And this independence, okay, will play a big role in statistics. So we said independence meaning the joint PDF is a product of the marginal PDFs. And we also talked about, okay, it is called the conditional random variable, conditional mean, conditional variance, and so on. And when you said, when you defined what is called the correlation coefficient, that means how these two values, so X is taking certain values, Y is taking certain values, and then whether they are, these values are somehow correlated or not, like for the example of let's say weight and height, whether weight is related to height or height is related to weight or not. And if it is related, if they are correlated, in what sense they are correlated, whether they are positively correlated, negatively correlated, and so on. And to measure this, we said, okay, you just normalize the covariance, and we denoted as this rho. We defined what is called the rho, the correlation coefficient. And we said if this is 0, the value of rho is 0, then we said, okay, then the x and y, or let's say the covariance is 0, then that means x and y, they are uncorrelated. And we also have seen that for independent random variables, so if two random variables are independent, then of course the correlation coefficient is 0 because they are not related. Okay, so this is what we have done for the case of, so this is a theoretical study. Okay, well, of course, we talked about specific distributions. I mean, if a random variable has certain kind of a PDF has certain properties, and it is a special function, and we call different names like for discrete case or the continuous case. And similarly, for a pair of random variables x and y, we actually discussed only one joint PDF, which is it's called a bivariate normal. Bivariate meaning two variables, two random variables here. So bivariate normal, and we also normal, and we also talked about, okay, what is the joint PDF for a bivariate normal. You can have other distributions also, like bivariate Poisson, bivariate whatever, gamma, beta, other things, but those are not a part of the syllabus. And they, I mean, why we're focusing on normal, basically, you'll see later that in statistics, normal will play a big role. In fact, most of the cases will assume that the data related to a random experiment that follows a distribution, and we'll assume that this is normal. And there is a reason for that, and this is what is called the central limit theorem. We talked about that. We'll talk about that. So yeah, so that's we are specifically focusing on the bivariate normal case. Yeah, and then finally, towards the end of the last lecture, we introduced two new random variables. So I did not define it properly. I mean, I did not give you a background, but I just said, okay, so if we have something called a sample, we'll talk about it. Formally, I will introduce what is sample. But we said, okay, suppose we have x1, x2, xn, they are independent random variables. Okay, so they are IID. Okay, they are IID, independent and identically distributed. Then we define the new random variable, which is x bar, which is called, so this can be called, talked about, this can be said as a random sample. And then we define a new random variable, which is called sample mean, and sample mean. And we define what is called sample variance. So we define basically these two new random variables. And in statistics, these two random variables are special interest. So in fact, we'll see today. I'll try to give you a brief idea of why this will play a big role, and basically what we want to study with, and why we are studying this. This is one thing, and what are the speculations we can make about a given data. Okay, so basically the idea is why we are defining this, why these two are important, and if we know these things about the random experiment, okay, what can you say about the random experiment? Okay, so yeah, so the entire statistics basically, I mean, at least at the introduction part, depends on these two random variables, the sample mean and the sample variance. Okay, so to give you a brief idea, let me talk about a particular example. Okay, so let me say, because here specifically we'll focus on something called continuous random variable, which you know. So when some data is produced from, for example, you are let's say, okay, let me fix first an example. Let us say, I mean, when do you call a problem a statistical problem? Let us to understand that. Okay, I mean, this is a statistic. This is in the domain of statistics. I mean, you need to apply statistical techniques to solve the problem. So that can be considered as a solution, statistical solution for the problem. Okay. Now, suppose you want to talk about the battery, the battery life of let's say a kind of model of a calculator, pocket calculator, let's say. Okay, so you have a calculator here. So you are working in a company. This is their calculator. Okay, and now there is a battery. Let's say it's a lithium battery. Okay, lithium. Yeah, it's lithium battery. Okay, now we want to study the life and to study the performance of this lithium battery. So basically the lifespan of the battery. Now see, if you want to do that, so there are many, the company, let's say, it manufactures many batteries. Okay, so every day they produce, let's say, some 100 or 1,000 number of calculators, and for each calculator there is a battery. Now company has to guarantee, let's say, that at least these many days the battery will work. Okay, but the problem here is company cannot test each individual battery, the lifetime of individual battery, okay, to decide on a value that what is the lifetime. It is not possible. So what can company possibly do? Okay. Now here the basic assumption is this lifetime is a random variable. Okay, this is some number, let's some years, okay, some number of months. So that can be drawn, that can have a particular, let's say, distribution. Okay, and this distribution is unknown to the company. Okay. Now the question is then, what can I say about this distribution? Now, what is the challenge here? The challenge here is that we cannot observe, let's say, the lifetime of each individual battery, but we have to give an approximate value for the lifespan of any battery which is produced by the company. Okay. So now the thing is, so now I'll define a term which is called a population. Okay. Now associated with this problem, the problem I discussed. So the problem here is I have to come up with a number. Okay. So this number is associated to the random variable which measures the lifespan. Okay. So I have to produce a number which gives a value or an approximate value for the lifespan of the battery. Okay, of the batteries, let's say. So this is the problem. So what is the population here? So with this problem, so there is a large group of objects. That's what is called population. Population means here in this particular problem, all possible batteries produced by the company. Okay, so corresponding to any statistical problem, there is a group of for any statistical problem. Why it is statistical? Because I do not know a definite value to this. Okay, this is not a deterministic situation. So I have to predict something, and which is something which is uncertain. I do not know what value would be. What would be its value? I do not know that. So I need some statistical techniques, okay, to come up with a value, come up with a number. Okay. So for any statistical problem, there is a large group. This large is very, very relative. I'll talk about that. I mean, when can you consider? Okay, I'll talk about that maybe later on a little bit. Large group. Large here maybe 1,000, okay, or 10,000 or more than that. 100 can also be a large number, depending on the context, of course. So then there is a large group of objects. About which you have to make some inference. About which we have to infer something. Okay, so that is the problem itself. Okay, what is the problem? Here the problem is lifespan. And this group of objects, this group I'm talking about, is called the population. So here the population is batteries. Okay, and there is a large number of batteries produced yesterday, today, tomorrow, anytime. Somebody wants to say something? Okay. Now, when I say that infer what? So that means infer about which we have to infer something. Okay, something. Okay, so infer what? So we must have a random variable. Okay, so here the second point is corresponding to this problem, there is a random variable. So here it is the lifespan, of course. So for any statistical problem, there is a random variable. Okay, whose behavior I have to study. Okay, whose behavior we have to study based on this population. Okay, or related to the population, or related to the population. Okay, now as I said, in a generic problem, okay, we can have a very, very large population. Let's say 1 lakh or maybe 10 lakhs. Okay, this many large population. Now, since I cannot observe the entire population, what I'll possibly do, I'll pick some of the objects out of this very large population. So pictorially, if you want to see, suppose this is the population, this is a set of all objects, okay, which are produced using something, okay. So this is the population. Now I want to predict, I want to infer something about this population, but I cannot do that considering each individual value. So I have to pick a sample out of it, a portion out of it. This portion is actually a sample, okay. But sample in a scientific sense, I'll talk about it. What is sample? What is not a sample? Let's say, or what is the concept of sample in our context? Okay? So anything, any subset need not be a sample. Okay. So if this is the population, then a portion of it, let's say this part, whatever the objects here, okay, this is part of the sample. Now, okay, you can ask, okay, suppose I have n number of objects or items in the population, then what percentage of the items can be considered as a sample, whether it is a 90%, 80%, 50%, 40%, okay. So studying which, I want to make some kind of inference about the population. Okay, I'll talk about that. Okay, so let us first settle the matter about sample. What is sample in our sense? Okay. Now, since we want to draw a conclusion about the entire population, okay. So in this case, for the lithium battery, let's say, okay, let me just denote first X, which is the lifespan. Okay, let me lifespan in our example of the batteries. Okay, now we want to select, let's say, from this big population, this is the sample I'm creating. So select n objects. N objects. So from this large population of these batteries, let's say, okay. Now we pick, let's say, some n number of objects. Although I said that this is a random variable, I'm denoting it as a random variable. Here the main point here is we do not know what is the distribution of this random variable. What is the PDF? We do not know. This is the main point. We don't know the PDF. And let us say we want to find the PDF, but not from the entire population, just by studying some elements, some objects from this population. And that's why we are selecting, let's say, n objects from this population. But these objects are picked at random. So select n objects at random. Now, what is the meaning of random here? So this random word will come thrice. Okay, one is this random variable already had appeared. Okay, now this is a random selection of objects. Now, what is random? So if we select this n batteries for this study, we have to choose in such a way that the selection of one battery neither ensures nor precludes the selection of any other. In that sense, it is random. So that means choice of any particular object does not influence choice of any other object. Okay. Now this is mathematically I cannot explain it. That's why we need to have a model for this. But let me just define it, that random means what? Selection. Okay. Selection from the sample. So this is what I'll call a random sample basically. The selection of any object in the sample, any object in the sample, okay, does not ensure or preclude, okay, selection of any other. So mathematically what it means is that selection of any object is independent of the selection of any other object. And in this sense, if this is the way we create our sample, then we'll call it a random sample. So mathematically what? So this is the intuition. This is the practical meaning. Okay. Mathematically, selection of an object is independent of the selection of other objects. Then we'll call it a random sample. I'll define what is a random mathematical. I mean, I'll give you a formal definition, let's say, a little later. But let me just say, I mean, what happens to this now when I pick, let's say, n batteries out of the entire population. The population can be very, very large. N could be small number compared to this number, the population. Okay. So what we are doing here, since we are picking n batteries, and each battery has a lifespan of this n, so I can have a random variable xi. And this I is equal to 1 to up to n. And what does it measure from this n sample? So what I want to study basically this xi. This is the lifespan. This measures the lifespan of the ith battery. Okay. Now, since I'm saying that lifespan of battery is independent, so it is chosen independently. And since this is a lifespan which depends on the battery itself only, so these random variables are actually independent. They are independent. They are independent random variables. So from the population, I picked n objects, which I'm calling it a random sample. The choice of any object in this particular sample does not influence the choice of the other any object in this sample. Okay, and there is a random variable which is xi, okay, associated with each of this sample, which is the lifespan here for the example, and these xi's are independent. Okay, now our main problem was, okay, what did we want to study? We wanted to study the lifespan. Now, suppose we observe the lifespan of this n batteries. That means if we observe, let's say, somehow we have a mechanism to observe this. Observe the lifespan of the batteries from this sample. So what would we get? We'll get some values. Let's say small x1. This is the lifespan of the first battery. So we'll get x2 lifespan of the second battery and ... xn. So they are like the realization of this x1. Some value x2, some value xn. Now say here, this n number of objects which we have chosen, this is random. So for a second sample, you may not get the same x1, same x2, same xn. This is also a variable. This observed values for this x1, x2, xn, okay, they also vary. So this is a specific for any particular given. This is fixed value, but in general, since the random sample itself is a choice, okay, so you can have also, so this is you can have different values. So it could be like y1, y2, yn. So it depends on the sample you choose. Okay. Now the idea is using those values. Let's suppose you choose a sample. So you will get some values like small x1, small x2, small xn. And using these values, we have to say something about the population. Okay. So then the question is, if we treat this capital X1, capital X2, and capital Xn as independent, okay, and they're also identically distributed. Why they're identically distributed? But because let's say the population, the objects, they are produced in a similar fashion, using the similar technology, using the similar procedure. So it is expected that the battery, the lifetime, okay, or lifespan of each battery will be same, which was originally my X. That was the random variable associated with this experiment or this population. And this X1, X2, Xn, they are the realizations of that X. Okay, so I have n random variable, and they're all identically distributed, and they're also independent. So this will make an IID sample. Okay, so now let me define what is called formally what is called a random sample. Random sample. So the random sample of, when I say n object, I would say it is a sample of size n, okay, of size n, from, now see, when I'm saying x1, x2, xn, they have the same distribution as the x had. So I'm saying now this is a random sample of size n from the same distribution of x. So from the distribution of x. I mean, what I mean to say is here, let's say this x had a normal distribution. Okay. Now, when you pick this x1, this is also normal. But when x1, the small x1 is produced, so it will take certain value here with some probability. x2, let's say x2 is here, so you'll get certain value with some probability. But I do not know whether it is normal or not. If I assume this as a normal, I'm saying. Okay. So this value, small x1, small x, small x2, they're coming from this particular distribution. There's some realizations of some particular value, and I do not know under what which probability I can get small x1, with which probability I can get small x2, with which probability I can get small xn. So the random sample of size n from the distribution of x is a collection of n independent random variables. So here, so when I say distribution, so they have the same distribution, so independent random variables. So this is what is random sample. Random variables, okay, variables with the same distribution, as x. So what I had is, I had a statistical problem and I had a corresponding x. Now I pick some n number of objects from here, from the population, okay, and dot 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 xn. But they are realizations of this x, so they have the same PDF, and they are all independent. This is IID, and then I call it a random sample. Okay. Now there is a thing. Okay. Now the thing is, if the sample, if my population is small, let's say my population is 10. Okay. Suppose it is 10. Okay. Now if I pick one, and then I pick the second one, then of course they are not independent. Why? Because what I'm doing is I am doing it without replacement. So because second time I may get the first thing. I mean, let me say it like this. Suppose there are 10 books and my eyes are closed. I ask you to pick one of them. Now, once you pick one of them and put it aside, then second time when you are going to pick, there are only 9 books. So you can only pick 1 out of 9. So that means the choice of the first one, okay, that influences the choice of the second one. So whenever you have something where you want to do it without replacement, it cannot be independent if the population is small. Here, what I'm doing is, when I'm talking about sample, I'm doing the same thing. I'm not saying that I'm picking this sample with replacement. I'm not saying that. My choice of the sample, so without replacement, and still I'm calling it independent. Okay? In what sense this is true then? So this is where it comes into intuition. This is where it comes into I mean, you have to compromise with something called common sense. Okay, the common sense is if the population is very, very large, so instead of 10 books, if I am supplied with 1,000 books, okay, and if I pick first one, let's say, and then I pick the second one, maybe it would be independent because this population is so large. Okay, so this is where it comes about common sense. Okay, so it may not be mathematically defined, but the intuition says so. That's why probability and statistics are called for a long time that it's a study of common sense. Okay, so you have to apply common sense than theorem. So once you formulate the problem using common sense, then you apply your theorems. But before that, you have to have some sense like how to solve this problem. Okay, so anyway, so here I'm saying when I'm picking the samples, I'm not doing it with replacement. I am doing it without replacement, but still I'm calling it independent. Okay, so here in a sense that when my population is very large and sample is very small, then I'll assume that it is independent. But in true sense, it is not. Now the question is, what should be my sample size? What percentage of these objects should be there in the sample size? So this is a rule of thumb. Then we'll say, okay, in the random sample, this is when you will deal with the real data, you'll see that in a random sample, so in a random sample, okay, we use 5% of the entire population. Then I will assume that, okay, this is independent. So my theory will go all right, entire population. Okay. So I can at most, so up to 5%. So I can pick at most 5% of the population to decide on my random sample. Okay. And using this 5% objects of this entire population, okay, I have to infer something about the entire population. Okay. Now the first question is, what do you want to say about the population? Here, for example, we started with the problem. We talked about lifespan of that. So we do not know, we cannot guarantee the value of the lifespan, but we can say the expected lifespan. In what sense it is expected? I have a random variable x. Okay, initially I started with random variable x, and I want to talk about mu x or the variance or the standard deviation. I want to predict these values using only 5% of the object. So using only the random sample. Okay, so since I do not know the density function or the PDF of this random variable x, I can only try to find these parameters, which is the mean, variance, and standard deviation about the entire population, but with the aid of a random sample. Okay. Now, again, common sense. Using common sense, you can say, since I have a sample, okay, of similarly produced objects, so the property of this sample, okay, probably can give us an idea of the property of this mean, variance, and standard deviation. So once I have a sample means what? I have this random variable x and x. So I have basically n objects, and if I observe its properties, so I have these values. So this realization, small x1, small x2, okay, dot dot dot, small xn. So I have these numbers. So using these numbers, which are the lifespan of this n batteries from the sample, I can define what is called a sample mean. That means these are the lifespan of this n objects. So I can talk about the sample mean. Sample means what? Now sample mean meaning the mean of the values of the samples. So here the random variable is lifespan. So mean of the lifespan of this n objects. So then I have the idea of sample mean. I can talk about sample median. Okay. I can talk about sample variance. I mean, what about statistics I can do? So this is what is called statistics. formally I will talk about when you say something about a statistic. Okay, statistic I'll define later on that it is nothing but once you have IID, okay, any function of this will give you a statistic. Mean is a function of this x1, x2, xn. The way I defined earlier, the last day. Again, I will define it today, just to recall my definition and the context. Okay, so I have this mean, meaning this is a realization, small x1, small x2, small xn. But since random sample itself is a choice. Okay, so every time you may not, suppose you want to take 3 samples, 4 samples, 10 samples. You may not get the exact same sample repetitive. You may get different samples. And then the values of the small x1, small x2, small xn will change, of course. Okay, so then this small x1, small x2, small xn can be better to treat as random variables, capital X1, capital X2, capital Xn. And then I need to define a function about this x1, capital X1, capital X2, capital Xn, in terms of the corresponding realized values, small x1, small x2, small xn. And then that can be called as a statistic. So at statistics, nothing but a function of these IIDs. Okay. So here, in particular example here, this is the sample mean, sample variance. So these are functions of this x1, x2, xn. I'll define it, but let me just say, write it down. So variance or sample standard deviation. Standard deviation. Okay. Now, what is sample mean? So it is the average value of capital X. But here I don't have the capital X because I cannot measure all the objects. So I have a sample and then I can take the average values of this lifespan. Okay, so I have the smaller data set, okay, which are the observations of the capital X. So my definition of sample mean is now let x1, x2, xn be a random sample. So whenever I'm saying a random sample, I'm already assuming that they are IID. I do not know the distribution, but they are identically distributed and they're all independent. So let x1, x2, xn be a random sample, and there is an underlying distribution from the distribution of x, then the statistic x1 plus x2 plus plus xn by n. Okay, so this is sum over xi, I equal to 1 to n divided by n. Okay, the statistic is, so this is a function of x1, capital X1, capital X2, capital X. It's called sample mean, and sometimes it is denoted at x bar. X bar. Sometimes it is denoted at x bar. So yeah, but you have to observe here. I mean, you have to remember that x bar is not equal to mu x. What is the mu x? This is the mean of all the products in the population, all the objects in the population. That is what is mu x in my notation. But this is just a sample mean. It is not equal to the mu x, which is the mean of the entire population. So this is the mean of the entire population. Mean of the entire population. Okay. Now, what is the expected? I mean, expected are not in mathematical say. What can we say? I want this x bar to be close to mu x. Okay, possibly. Then I can say, okay, yeah. So then from this x bar, I can say something about mu x. Okay. Yeah. Now, next thing. So I have to study about this. Okay. For a population, I have to talk about sample mean. So if x has certain kind of distribution in a theory, suppose beforehand, at priori assume that x has some kind of a distribution. Let's say it is normal. Then the question will be, what is the PDF of x bar? So based on this assumption, this is what we will do in this course. in statistics, most of the times we'll assume that let's say in every case we'll assume that this x, okay, the underlying distribution of x, this x, it has normal. Then the question is, what is the distribution of x bar? And from this distribution, we can calculate its mean, or let's say the sample mean. Okay, so sample mean is a random variable here. Its PDF we know. That PDF will have this random variable will have some mean, and that value how it is related to the population mean. Okay, and similar thing we can do it for the variance. Okay, so this is a sample mean. Now let us talk about the variance, sample variance, another statistic. In fact, we'll focus on this particular statistic, and we can say about sample, the median, and other things, but those are easy compared to this, and these are of special interest. Sample variance. But if you are interested, you can study those. Very simple. So sample variance. Now, what is variance? Let us just recall. What is variance? Variance of a random variable. So it measures the variability of the data. Okay. So how much vary? How much the data means what is x? You have a random variable. It can take certain values. For example, here the lifespan for different kind of object, different kind of batteries. Okay, it will have some values. How much this lifespan could vary? Okay, so that is measured by, this is called the variance, right? So sigma square is nothing but expected value of x minus mu whole square. This was our definition. So now here you see variance itself is expectation, because it is defined by expectation of a random variable. Because if x is a random variable, this is a function of x, which is again a random variable, and this expected value of this random variable x minus mu whole square is called the variance. Okay? So here is basically this measures the gap between mu and x. The x will take certain values, and mu is the mean. If we know mu, so then x minus mu square, basically it's the square distance of that value with mu, and then it's expectation. So basically it measures how much it will vary. Okay. So x here, let's say it is our population distribution, let's say. And then this is our population variance in that case. So same thing, we want to define it for a sample, right? Okay. Now, what you can do, we have this x1, x2, sorry, x1, x2, xn. Instead of this capital X, we just have x1, x2, xn. x1, x2, xn. So what we can say, and we also have x bar, let's say. So then what we can do is we can measure this value, right? So I would not know each value of x. X was the population distribution. Now here I have a sample distribution, xr. I know the values of xr. So, and I know x bar, let's say. And I can talk about this. So I can talk about the whole square. So logically I can do that. And I can divide this by n. And then I can say r equal to 1 to n. Okay, so how much it could vary? I have to normalize it because I have n different random variables. So I have to take the average because I have to take the expectation. Okay, this expectation is the average. So here expectation is, since I have n objects, so I'll do this. And this could be a definition for my sample variance. But there is, so that's what I said last day also. I do not consider this denominator as n, but I'll consider this as n minus 1. What is the reason here? It can be shown that this statistic, if I take, so this is also statistic because it is a function of x1, x2, xn. If I take this statistic, then on average, it will underestimate. On average, it will underestimate sigma square, because I want to infer from the sample about the population variance, which is sigma square, let's say. Okay, so if I take this as my definition of sample variance, so this will underestimate this value, sigma square. So instead of this n, it is observed that if I take n minus 1, okay, so the denominator as n minus 1, then it will give me a better statistic, and that I'll call it as a sample variance. In fact, so the idea here is, okay, this statistics is for this statistic. So this particular statistic, and let me just write it, statistic, okay, is unbiased, okay, unbiased for sigma square. Okay, what is unbiased? This will define when we'll do estimation of parameters. Okay, so but meaning of this unbiased, so this can be shown later on. Okay, so that this is okay, this not this statistic. This statistic will be biased. So okay, so let me write it like, if we replace n in the denominator, by n minus 1, then the corresponding statistic is unbiased. Okay, now unbiased meaning is, I mean, it's a technical term, let us say. So unbiased meaning it is centered at the right spot. Okay, means that is a useful one. I mean, this is a useful definition for sigma square. So this is what it should be. It means like that. Okay, so in that sense, it is unbiased. Okay, it is not biased. So we define what is called the sample variance. In fact, we'll show, if we get time, when we talk about biased parameters, unbiased parameters, then we'll show that this is unbiased. Okay. Sample variance. So sample variance will be an unbiased parameter for sigma square. So the definition is, let x1, x2, dot xn, okay, be a random sample. Remember that whenever we say random sample, we mean that this is IID, x1, x2, xn. That measures something, they are the same distribution, they're all independent. It's a random sample. Be a random sample of size n, okay, from the distribution of x. Okay, sometimes you don't have to write this. Sometimes we'll write this xi is same distribution as x. So this notation we'll use. Okay, we already said what is the meaning of this. So we already know what is the meaning of this. So xi is approximately equal to x. So that means xi has the same distribution as x. Okay, then the sample variance, then the statistic s square, which is s square, which is xi minus x bar, okay, whole square divided by n minus 1, I equal to 1 to n, is called the sample variance. Okay, and square s, and s, which is square root of s square, is called the sample standard deviation. Sample standard deviation. Okay. However, we can give an alternative. I mean, if we expand this xi and x bar, basically, if I extend x bar, so this basically a computational, we can write it like this way, that this is sum over xi square minus sum over xi whole square. Just write x bar as sum of xi and then take the square. You can prove that this is this, n square this, and then this will be n into n minus 1. So sometimes you can define it this way also. So in most of the statistical computer packages, okay, they compute these values. Okay, I mean this way, because if you know this xi, you can immediately compute it. But anyway, this is the same thing. If you just write x bar equal to this, then you'll get it. Okay. So then, what is the ultimate goal? We want to infer something about capital X, which is, let's say, the random variable associated with the population from this random sample. Okay, and this statistic, okay, like the random the sample mean and the sample variance, they are defined in terms of sum of random variables. You see, this x bar is sum in a sense linear combination. Okay, this is a linear combination of x1 expression. Here also linear combination of xi minus x bar whole square. This is a linear combination. So essentially, we come to the situation for a theoretical study that if x has certain kind of distribution, because this all these xi's are the same distribution. Now, suppose x is normal, suppose, then we have to study what happens if we study linear combination, the distribution of the, if we study the distribution of the PDF of a random variable, which is a linear combination of independent normal random variables. Okay. Or here from the chi-square, you see now, if you recall, when we talked about when we defined chi-square distribution, or let's say x is random, x is normal, then what is x minus mu by sigma square, or x minus mu by sigma whole square? We talked about it. What is the distribution of that? Okay. So we'll just repeat that again a little bit. So basic idea here is now, if you have a independent, say sequence of independent random variables with some specific distribution, let's say it's normal, and what happens to the distribution of the sample mean and the sample variance? Okay, this is how we'll proceed. We'll take 2-3 minutes break, and then we'll start it again. Yeah. Okay, so let us start with an example. So what is the idea here? What we want to study now? So basically our goal is now, suppose fx, now I'll write this, okay? Suppose this is the PDF of x. Suppose it is known to us and it is given that xi is IID with the distribution of x. That means xi is I equal to 1 to n, let's say. Maybe n equal to 1, 3, 4, 5, 2, whatever the number. This is given. Then if I take any statistic of this, for example, here we'll particularly focus on, let's say, sum of xi or sum of xi by n, or let's say xi minus sum x bar by n or n minus 1 square. Okay, so this kind of functions, this kind of statistics, if we have, then what I can say about this mean or the variance of these random variables, this new random variable, this statistics. In fact, the whole theory of the statistics is only about that. What? If I know the PDF, then here in a class like situation, we are talking about what would we want to make, we want to see that if x has certain distribution, suppose it is normal, suppose it is known, then what happens to the PDF or the mean or the variance of these random variables. But in a practical situation, we do not know the PDF of this. But suppose I know how x is produced, how this data set is produced about this x. So if I assume that it is normal, or when we prove the central limit theorem, we'll say that it can be assumed as normal. Then not exactly x, but a function of x can be assumed as normal. And then the question will be, what are the distribution, what are the mean, variance, and so on for this kind of a statistic like sample mean or the sample variance. Okay. So here in a classroom situation, suppose we know the PDF of x. From there, what we can say about the PDF or mean or variance of this different kind of statistics. Okay, statistic here is nothing but a function of this x1, x2, xn. If that is the, so here I equal to, let's say, 1 to 2. So it is a sample of size n. Okay. In fact, when you will do, let's say, estimation of parameters, so what happens is whenever we assume that the PDF of x, okay, let's say it is normal. The normal has two parameters, right? Mu and sigma square. So then I have to estimate those values of mu and sigma square. If I talk about Bernoulli's, and this is, there is a parameter called p, the probability. I was talking about this problem last day. That suppose I give, suppose you want to study, suppose you know that there is a coin and this probability of the head is p. Okay, then how can you predict the value of p? Okay, so you have to toss the coin and let's say you have to create this exercise, and then from there you will try to find out this p. So that is what is called estimation of parameter. So you have to estimate the parameter value. Okay, the parameter is what? The parameter which defines the PDF. So there is a parameter which is involved in the PDF of capital X. So this is the business of statistics. Okay, now let us start with an example. Okay, suppose we have a random sample of size 2. Okay, so suppose we have fx of x, which is, let's say, some continuous distribution. Let's say it is 6x times 1 minus x, when 0 less than x less than 1 and 0 otherwise. Suppose it is known. Otherwise, I just want to see how to calculate this. Okay, and suppose x1 and x2, they form a random sample. Okay, which is IRD of x. Then the question is, okay, what is the mean and variance? Calculate the mean and variance of y, which is x1 plus x2. So this is again a statistic, which is a function, just a sum of x1 and x2. So how do you do that? Who can tell me? So I have to find E of y. So E of y means what? E of x1 plus x2. Expectation is a linear parameter, linear operator. So it is x1 plus x4, x2. So basically, I need to know, and x1, x2 are has the same, they have the same distribution. So it will be same. So basically, 2 of E of x. So basically, I need to find what is expectation of x. And if I want to find the variance of y, let's say, so variance of x1 plus x2, I want to calculate that. So what is the formula here? Recall my formula for variance of x plus y. What is the formula? This will be what? Variance of x1 plus x2 will be what? Anybody?
P of x1
Huh?
whole
Variance
square.
of. Yeah. So
Yes.
ultimately, what is the formula? Yeah. So when you're solving the problem in exam-like situation, you have to remember all this. Okay. You should not use the definition. But if you write the definition and derive, it will take a lot of time. So what is the ultimate formula here? Okay. Let me recall here. This is variance of x1 plus variance of x2 plus 2 times covariance of x1, x2. But since x1 and x2 are independent, so covariance is 0. It is basically variance of x1 plus variance of x2. Now, since x1, x2 they are identically distributed, you get the same variance. So it is the variance of x. So basically, I need to find the variance of x and the variance of the mean of x. These two things. How to calculate mean? Mean of the distribution. What is that? Mu x is what? Mu x is x fx. So x times fx, 6x times 1 minus x. So 6x times 1 minus x dx from 0 to 1. So you know this value. Suppose you can compute it. I think you can do it. So then you know mean of x. So here you can find the mean of this y, which is x1 plus x2, plugging in that value, right? And then you want to calculate the variance of x. Formula for the variance of x is what? This is expectation of x square minus expectation of whole square. So you know already expectation of this. So you know this value. This value is known to you. So we just need to find this one. So this is what? This is x square times fx dx. So minus this value is known to you. You have to just take the square of that. So here it is from 0 to 1. So if you compute this value, then you get the mean and variance of x1 plus x2. A very simple problem. Okay. And here, let me state the theorem which can easily be proved, but I'll leave it as a homework. So this is a result. Let's say instead of theorem, let me call it a result. So if x1, x2, xn, they are identically distributed and they are independent, let's say, or maybe they are just independent. Let us assume that if xi are independent, because this can be generalized. If these are independent and with densities f of x1, x, or you can say f1 of x1, f2 of x2 with densities this dot 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 some fn xn. Okay, and then let's say then you want to compute expectation of some function of this random variables, product of the function of this random variable. Okay, so ui is a function of xi. Let's say xi square. Okay, let's say u1 of x1 is, let's say, x1 square, u2 of x2, let's say x2 cube, and so on. So they are just functions. Then it can be proved that okay, let's say this exists first of all. I cannot calculate. So let's say this exists. Then okay, and suppose this exists. Then the theorem says expectation of product of this. I'll give you an application of this, so don't worry about that. This is a little complicated when I'm stating it, but it is very, very simple. So this is equal to product of the expectations. Okay, ui xn I equal to 1 to n, where this exists for some functions ui I equal to 1 to n. Okay, then this is product, the expectation of the product of this function is nothing but the product of the expectations. I mean, this is just the bottom line. So let me give you an example, and then it will be easily understood, like what I said here. I mean, UIs are nothing but the function. I mean, if you just write the definition because they are independent, so UIs of Xi will also be independent. So you can write it as a product and then you can get the result. I mean, it can be proved very easily, but let us not go into the proof because it will take time, but it is very simple. Okay, suppose, now let us see an example. So suppose this is the problem. Suppose X and Y are two random variables with joint density, let's say this, f of xy is equal to e to the power minus x plus y, when let's say 0 less than x, y less than infinity, and 0 otherwise. Now my question here is find the expected value of this x square y square plus x y square plus x square plus x. So this is my random variable. Oh yeah, so this is my random variable. Okay. Now who can tell me the answer? Now see, this problem is in disguise. So here I said, okay, they are independent. Okay, then I have this formula. I'm going to use this formula basically. Now see, whenever you have this joint PDF, I give that example also, this particular example also earlier. So when this is a joint PDF, what can you say about the individual PDF, marginal PDFs? Who can say? This is what? This is e to the power minus x times e to the power minus y. So basically, this is a product of two functions, x and y separately. So that means what?
They are independent.
They are independent. Yeah, yeah. So that means this is fxx, or maybe you can write f on x and f2, or maybe x here because I said about x, and y. So then that means they are nothing but x1 and x2, x and y, they are independent. Okay. Now I have to find this expected value of this product of this. So let me just write it down here. So it's the value of this x square y square plus x y square plus x square plus x. Now if you do a little bit of algebra here, so this is what this problem is a disguise, and this kind of problem you can expect in the exam, for example. Okay. So this can be written as you see x square plus x times y square plus 1. This can be factored as like this. We just take x square common and then x common, so x square common from this, x common from this, so then you have y square plus 1 common, and then you have this. Now see, this is a function of x, so this is like u1 of x, and this is like u2 of x, u2 of y. Now since x1, x2, x and y are independent, so u1x and u2x are u2y are also independent. Now here the expectation of the product of two, here this is the formula. Expectation of product of this is nothing but the product of the expectation. So basically, using this result, what you can write here is this is expectation of x square plus x, and this is expectation of y square plus 1. Now we know that this is the expression of a single random variable, which we know. There is nothing but expectation is a linear operator, so it is x square plus expectation of x. Okay, this part is done, and this will be expectation of y square. Okay, plus 1. So basically, what do I need to find? This. So e to the power minus x is the PDF of x. So I just have to find expectation of that x and expectation of x square. If I know that, I can get this value. And this will be same value as this one because they're independent distributed. So I can solve this problem. So this problem is in disguise. Okay, it looks like very complicated, but it is actually not. So there is, I mean, just have to just apply these things. Okay, like whatever we have studied. Now, let me tell you, let me give you a general result, which again can be proved very easily, but I'll not give you the proof. Okay. So this is again one more result. I mean, this proves will follow from the definition itself. Suppose, okay, suppose x1, x2, xn. So our goal is, do not forget our goal. Our goal is we had a random sample x1, x2, xn, and they are independent. They are arithmetically distributed. Now, what do we want to find out? We want to find out the mean or variance of some functions of those random variables. So whatever we'll be doing here, the underlying assumption, the underlying goal is basically you have some independent random variables. Now you define a statistic, then try to find out the mean and variance of that statistic. Okay, but the problems can appear in a different way. Okay, but we have to form the we have to frame the problem, let's say, in this particular fashion, because that is our goal. So suppose x1, x2 dot 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 xn are mutually independent, independent random variables with means, let's say mu1, mu2 dot 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 mu1. Suppose you know that, and variances, let's say sigma 1 square, sigma 2 square dot 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 sigma n square. Then the mean and variance of this random variable, which is linear sum of this xi's. Okay, this is a general formula I'm giving you. This AIs, if they are particular like 1 by n, then it is nothing but the sample mean. So I'm giving it in general. So they are just independent and they can be differently distributed. So they need not be identically distributed. So this theorem is in general. This result is in general. So let's say mu1, mu2, mu n. These are the means, and sigma square, sigma 2 square, sigma n square are the variances. Then the mean and variance of this random variable are given by, this can easily be proved using the definition itself. So mu I, let's say, this will be nothing but linear sum of the mu i's, because they are independent. Okay, you can use the independent property to prove this. Nothing, you just use the definition of expectation of y, and then expand it, and then use the property of expectation. That's it. And sigma square y will be sum over I equal to 1 to n, I square sigma I square. So this is a general formula. Okay, for any linear combination, this is the mean and the variance. Okay. Now let me ask you a problem. Let me discuss a problem. So this kind of problems are important for exam. Let's say you consider a random sample. Suppose you have a random sample of size, let's say 50. Suppose x1 or x50. Okay, from a random sample. Okay, from, this is FORM, this is FROM, from a distribution, which suppose you know distribution. So this is like a PDF of X is known to you, okay, from our notation. From the distribution, let's say this fx equal to 1 by theta to the power minus x by theta, when 0 less than equal to x less than infinity and 0 otherwise. Then the question is, what is, or what are, let's say, the mean and variance of x bar? That's the question. So x bar is a sample mean. This is the sample. So this is a sample of size 50, and they are all independent, identically distributed, and their distribution is also known, fx. Then I have to find the mean and the variance. I know the formula for any linear combination. Okay, so I know how to find the mean. I know how to find the variance also. And this formula is also valid when they need not be identically distributed. But here I have more thing is given, the identically distributed. So what is the solution? Who can tell me? So what is E of x bar here? This is E of x1 plus dot 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 plus x50 by 50. So this is what is the sample mean, right? X bar. So this is what? So yeah, so this is what?
E of X, and X can be anyone. And these are in IIT.
So what is the formula here? If they are independent, this is the formula. So this is also linear sum. This is a general sum, and here the AI is nothing but 1 by 50. So this will be sum over 1 by 50 mu I, and mu i's are mu here because they are identically distributed. So basically this will be what? 1 by 50. Okay, by the way, what is the mean of this one? Who can tell me? Without even calculating. Can anybody tell me? This is a known distribution. What distribution is this? This is exponential.
Sir,
Yeah, so what is the mean for exponential and what is the variance?
sir, mean is theta.
And variance is theta square. Okay, so what is the answer here? 1 by 50 times sum over the means, which is theta, I equal to 1 to 50. So anyway, so this is theta. And what is the variance? So now see here, this is exactly, the sample mean is exactly the population mean. Here I know the population distribution, so I know that its mean is theta. I just took 50 realizations independent, and then I found that, okay, sample mean is exactly equal to the population mean. And what is the variance of x bar? So this is variance of sum over 1 by 50 xi, I equal to 1 to 50. So let us use our formula for the independent this thing. So this sigma square is nothing but sigma square, which is theta square, by the way, and AIs are nothing but 1 by 50. So basically here it is 1 by 50 sum over square theta square, and this is for 50 times. I mean sum over I equal to 1 to 50. So this is 50 times 1 by 50 square times theta square, which is theta square by 50. So here sample variance is not the population variance. Okay, so but the sample mean is exactly equal to the population mean. Here's an example. Now let me tell you, give you another result. So this is about MGF, the moment generating function. So suppose x1, x2, xn are independent random variables. So here all the results we are discussing are concerned with the random sample in disguise. Okay, but whatever can be generated. So in random sample we have independent random variables which are IID, meaning they are also identically distributed. But here need not be identically distributed even if they are independent. So they have a lot of properties which we want to use. So suppose x1, x2, xn, they are independent random variables with, suppose you know the moment generating function with m xi t I equal to 1 to n as MGF, moment generating functions. Then the MGF of y, which is a linear sum of this independent random variables, is nothing but the product of the moments with a twist because AI is also here, is my, let's say t is nothing but the product of I equal to 1 to n m xi ait. Why I'm giving this result to you? Because sometimes we may find out, we may need to find out, suppose in a problem, the fourth order moment you are asked to find, or the fifth order moment. So then what you do is find the moment generating function. This is nothing but the product of the moment generating function when this x1, x2, xn are independent. Okay, so let us see a problem. Suppose x1, x2, xn, x10, let's say, is a sample, random sample. Suppose let this be a random sample of size 10, okay, from a distribution or a density distribution with density with density this fx 1 by square root of 2 pi equal minus half x square minus infinity less than x less than infinity. My question here is, what is the MGF of the sample mean? Who can tell me? So here, x bar is what? X bar, according to the definition, x bar is 1 by n times x1 plus 1 by n times x2 plus dot 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 1 by n times xn. Right? So this AIs are nothing but 1 by n here. And since this is a random sample, so they are all independent. So I can apply this theorem at this result. Now, what is the PDF here? The population PDF is what? This is a standard one. Can anybody tell me? What is the PDF here? There's a very specific distribution. What is this distribution? Huh?
Normal distribution.
Yeah, so X is actually normal here, standard normal. This is the distribution. So this problem is in disguise. You see now, this is the beauty of this problem. So what I'm asking here is basically, if the population density is normal, then what is the density of the sample mean? This is what is my question actually. If the population density is standard normal, then what is the density? I'm asking you in general, basically MGF. So it's the Momal-Jardine function of the sample mean. So according to this result, what is the sample mean here? What is M x bar T? This is nothing but the product of the MGF because they're independent. And AI, I know the value. Right? AI is 1 by 10. So this is nothing but the product of I equal to 1 to 10 mxi 1 by 10t because this is AIT. Okay. The proof is simple. Proof is using the definition of MJ, we can prove this result. This is no big deal because they're independent, it will just be product. Anyway, so now what is this? This is mxi 1 by 10t. I know already that this is the fx. So xi also has the same density because it's a random sample. So xi has the same density as fx is. So if I do that, then what do I get? This is product of I equal to 1 to 10. And what is mxi 1 by 10t from this density? Who can tell me? Huh? Okay, first you tell me what is mxi t? Standard normal. What is the MGF of mxt? What is the MGF of standard normal? It is about half t square. So this is for all I. Try to make a product of this. Instead of t, I just have to put 1 by 10t. So this will be e to the power t square by 200. So I have to make I equal to 1 to 10. That means 10 times I have to make a product. So e to the power t square by 200. Okay, to the power 10. So what is this? To the power? This is exponential function. If you take 10 times product, then what will be that? T square by
20.
20.
So I can write 1 by 10 times t square by 2. So that means it is basically normal 0, 1 by 10. Because this is the MGF of the normal mean 0 and sigma square is 1 by 10 because the NGF is nothing but sigma square t square by 2. When sigma square equal to 1, this is what you get the MGF of this exercise. So this is very, very interesting. So what happens? So let me just make a remark here. This is what we have proved. Okay, in general. So I just could have taken, instead of 10 sample, I could have taken n samples and then I could have proved it. But anyway, the main observation is if we take a sample, okay, of any size, this I can prove, any n size. You can do this problem taking, instead of 10, you have n, let's say, of any size, okay, from a standard normal population, from a standard normal population. That means the population density is normal, standard normal population. Then the sample mean also has normal distribution. Normal distribution with mean 0 and variance will be 1 by 10, 1 by n, okay, the size. But I'll give you a more general result, okay, than this. So this is just an example of standard normal. But let me just tell you this result, okay. Again, the proof is very, very simple. Result is if x1, x2, dot, 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 xn, all these results are very, very useful when you're solving a problem, okay. So you have to remember all these results. And these results are very, very interesting. And that makes, because I told you earlier also, that normal distribution is a very, very specific distribution which has a lot of interesting properties. And these are the properties, okay. If x1, x2, xn are mutually independent random variables with, let's say these are all normal distribution. So they need not be standard normal, just even normal. With, let's say, xi is normal, some mu I sigma square. So they are just normal, I equal to 1 to up to n. Then, okay, the random variable is the linear combination of this xi's, the random variable y, which is sum over ai xi, I equal to 1 to l, is also normal. Okay, with mean is mu y, which is sum over ai mu I, and this is obvious because of the previous result. Sigma square is sum over ai square sigma square, I equal to 1 to n. In the previous result, we did not assume this fact. We just said if they are independent, then we, for any linear combination of that, we found the mean and the variance, okay, here. So if they are just independent, mutually independent random variable with this means and this variance, okay, then if you take a linear combination, its mean is nothing but this linear sum, and this variance is nothing but this linear sum. Now here for normal it is specific. For normal what happens is, if this x1, x2, xn are normal, then this y is also normal. This is the property, importance of property. Here it does not say anything about the distribution of y. This result just say about the mean and variance of y. It does not say about the PDF. But for normal, it is very special. That if x1, x2, xn, they are normal, then y, the linear sum, is also normal. So that means sample mean is always normal. If x1, x is random sample is normal, they are drawn from a random normal distribution, okay, then they are also this linear sum means the sample mean here, that is also normal. Okay. Okay, then the question is, suppose, okay, let me treat this as a problem. Suppose we pick, so let x1, x2, xn, okay, be a random sample from, let's say, n mu sigma square. So this is not mu I, sigma I. They are drawn, so they are identical because it is random sample. They are all identically distributed. So they are from normal itself with a fixed mean mu and the fixed variance sigma square. Okay. The question is, what is the mean and variance of x bar, the sample mean? The sample mean. Can anybody tell me? So what is expectation of x bar? What is that? The expectation of x1 plus dot 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 plus xn by n. So what will be this one?
It will be same as
Mu. Yeah, good. And what is the variance? This is important. What is the variance?
sigma square by n.
Sigma square by n. So if this is a random sample drawn from a normal, okay, fx normal, which is mu sigma square, then the mu remains the same, only variance changes. The variance of mean of this random, the sample mean of the sample mean, okay? X bar is the random variable which you define as sample mean. So its variance is sigma square by n, but mean remains fixed. Okay. So that means we can write x bar is not, yeah. Yes.
So the same thing also happen with the exponential, right?
Yeah, do it.
The same thing also happen with the
Yeah. So it was theta and theta square, but anyway, you can do that. Okay. I will specifically focus on normal. Okay. You can take different distributions and check whether they are true or not. Okay. Okay. So the next problem. Now let me just take a random sample. Okay. Suppose xi is normal, let's say 50, 16. So mu is equal to 50 and sigma square equals 16. And let's say I equal to some number. I want to, let's say 64. So I have a sample of size 64. Okay. My question is, let's say, this is a typical problem for the exam. For the probability of, let's say, 49 less than x8 less than 51 is one problem. Another problem is probability of 49 less than x bar less than 51. What are these values? How do you solve this? Okay, so all are normal. So xi, so x8 is also normal, right? S is also normal. It's 50 and 60. Here x bar is also normal. Okay, but let us first solve this cross problem A. So x8 is normal 50, 16, and you want to find what probability of 49 less than x8 less than x8 less than 51. So how do you proceed? What was the trick? If anybody can remember.
Yes, sir.
Can anybody?
Minus 50 divided by 16.
Yes. So yeah. So the trick was for any problem normal. If you have a normal problem, I mean problem with normal distribution, then of course we have to convert this into standard normal, right? So how to convert to standard normal? Standard normal. So x8 minus mu, which is 50, by standard deviation, which is 4. So this will be standard normal. Okay. So then we do the same thing here. 50 by 4. And here 49 minus 50 by 4. Okay. So this is probability of minus 1 by 4. Now z or phi. So let me write phi is less than 1 by 4 for the standard norm. So this is what this again I can write 2 times probability of z less than 1 by 4, or let's say phi less than 1 by 4 minus 1. So from the table we can find this value and then we can find the answer. The same thing we can do for the second problem. What is the distribution of x bar? all the xi's are normal 50, 16, mu 50, sigma square 16. So what is the PDF of X bar? We have seen, because this is a random sample, suppose this is a random sample, okay? A random sample, that means they're all independent. So random sample. They're all independent with the same distribution, normal. Yeah, so what is the distribution of X bar? We just proved that X bar.
And variance by 4.
Yeah, so X bar is also normal. The same mean, and variance is sigma square by n. Sigma square is 16 and n is 64. So same thing I can do like this here. Okay. Again, I'll convert this into standard normal, and then from the table I can get the values. Okay. Now let me state another result, which is again can be proved easily. So there are 3 distributions actually, which will play a big role in statistics. 3, not 3, 4, let's say. One is chi-square. Of course, one is normal. Okay. One is normal. One is chi-square. One is something called student distribution. I'll talk about it when why it is called a student, or something called some people also call it student T distribution. Another distribution is F distribution. So chi-square, student T distribution, F distribution. F is Fisher. This is named by mathematician, not mathematician, but let's say statistician, Fisher. I'll also talk about that, Fisher distribution. Okay, these 3 will play a big role because you'll see later on. Okay, but chi-square will also play a big role. So let me say something about chi-square. The chi-square we already discussed this way, but let us see here. If you take the sum, what happens for chi-square and other things? Okay, so let us see here. So suppose so x1, x2, xn are chi-square R1. So R1 degrees of freedom, R2 degrees of freedom. So I said before that I'll talk about it when what is the degrees of freedom. But let me assume that we know that with the degrees here, this is adjusting by the parameter. Suppose these are this means, I mean, I'm writing it like it means what I mean to say is x1 is distributed as chi-square R1, x2 is distributed as chi-square R2, and so on. So the result is if xi's are mutually independent, then their sum, which is x1 plus x2 plus dot 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 xn, is also chi-square. With the degrees of freedom is sum over the degrees of freedom, Ri, I equal to 1. Again, this theorem can be proved easily using finding MGF. Okay, this is one important result, which for the purpose of solving problems. And not only that, so basically this is the idea. So suppose x1, x2, xn, they are linearly independent. So they are mutually independent. So what is the sum of the distribution? Okay, I mean, as a distribution of the sum of these random variables. Another important result about chi-square is if Z1, Z2, Zn are mutually independent, standard normal. They are IID, but the distribution is standard normal. Standard normal distribution. Standard normal. That's why it makes it important. This chi-square. Okay. Standard normal. Then sum of the square, Zn square plus Z2 square plus dot 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 plus Zn square. This is chi-square. That's why chi-square is important. So here you have a new statistic, which is the sum of the squares. Earlier we did linear sum, just sum, okay? And we have seen that those are normal. But here you might have influence of this. I mean, you might have seen, I mean, you might guess about this result because we studied earlier that if it is standard normal, in fact, we have studied that if you give me a normal distribution x with mean mu and variance sigma square, then x minus mu by sigma whole square is chi-square 1. This we proved long back. So here it is the sum of the squares, and this then here using this now say either this is added, though the degree of freedom got added. So here that's why it got added. So the proof is very simple. So and we proved that earlier. Okay, that if x is any normal with mean mu and sigma square, then x minus mu by sigma whole square is chi-square 1. This we proved long back. If x is normal mu sigma square. So here is standard normal. That means mu equal to 0, sigma equal to 1. Okay. So then square of this z1 square, z2 square, zn square. Of course, these are the sum. The sum has the distribution chi-square n, where n is the degrees of freedom. Okay. Now I'll tell you a big result which I'll not prove in details due to the time, okay, the time constraint. But this result, if you do any course in statistics later on, the instructor will ask you this question, whether you know it or not. Okay. So that's why this result is very, very fundamental in statistics. Okay, and statistics, and this is very important. Okay. But I will not prove the entire detail. So there are many proofs of this result. But for undergraduate students, I think it is better to prove it using induction. Okay, but induction is, but the proof will be a little long. So anyway, let me just state the result. This result is very, very fundamental. Fundamental for the sake of applying it in many places in statistics. For this course, it is not that much important. Okay, I mean that much important means we will not see a lot of applications of this result. But if you develop if you knowledge about statistics, if you do any other statistics course, this result will play a fundamental role. So this is the result says. Okay, suppose I have a random sample. Suppose x1, x2, xn constitute or is just constitute a random sample from normal distribution. Which is sigma n mu sigma square. Okay. Then x bar, okay, which is sum over xi by 1 by n times 1 by n, I equal to 1 to n, and s square, the sample variance, which is 1 by n minus 1, sum over I equal to 1 to n. I'm just writing this because just for you to emphasize on these two statistics. Okay, you know, but still I'm writing. Then for this following are true. First one is n minus 1 s square by sigma square is chi-square, and that's why chi-square is important for the case of statistics. With n minus 1 degrees of freedom, is chi-square. This is the first result. So what I'm saying here is, we have a random sample from the normal distribution, then the sample variance with a scaling. Scaling means the scaling is n minus 1 by sigma square. This is the scaling. Is chi-square. Okay. And the second most important property is xn bar and not xn bar, s bar and s square. Okay. This x sample mean and sample variance, they are independent as random variables. So this random variable, sample mean and sample variance are independent when this random sample is drawn from normal distribution. Can anybody tell me why this could play a big role? Why this is important? Can anybody tell me? Can you make a guess? Why this result possible to be important? Okay, think about it. But let me give you a proof. Okay, of the first one, let's say. I mean, this can be done with induction, but let me prove this statement for n equal to 2. So if we have sample size 2, similarly, you can proceed using the induction. You can prove that you can assume that it is 2 for n minus 1, and then you can prove it for n. Okay, just let me, the technique is same, but just let me just prove this. So first, consider the case. Consider the case if we have some random sample with size 2, can space n equal to 2. So then what happens? Xi is normal, mu sigma square, they are independent, I equal to 1, 2. So what about x1 plus x2? Who can tell me? What is the distribution of x1 plus x2?
Be normal with mean 2 mu.
Okay.
Mean
It's also
mu.
2 sigma square. Okay. So think about that. Why? x1 minus x2, this will be, I'm little so it is 956. I have 4 minutes left. So just let me do it a little higher. Okay. So this will also be normal with mean 0. This we already discussed, all these properties. The linear sum we discussed. Okay. So here is a special linear sum, x1 plus x2 and x1 minus x2. So then you see what I want to prove is s square. S square means what? x1 minus x2 whole square by n minus 1. And here is 1. N is equal to 2. So, okay. So then x1 minus x2 by square root of 2 sigma square is normal 0, 1. Okay. Again, then half x1 minus x2 whole square by sigma square is chi square 1. So this proves all the reasons why I'm saying this is discussed earlier. Earlier means today. S2 square is chi square 1. So I proved the first result for n equal to 2. Okay. For the second one, they are independent. So like x bar and x are independent. So since x1 and x bar are independent, if you find the covariance of x1 plus x2 and x1 minus x2, so this will be covariance of x1 plus covariance of x1 x2 minus covariance of x2 x1 minus covariance of x2 x2. So what is covariance of x1 x1? This is the variance sigma square. Covariance of x1 x2 is 0. X2 is 0 because they are independent. Minus of this sigma square, which is equal to 0. So therefore, what we can say is x1 plus x2 and x1 minus x2. The covariance is 0 means they are uncorrelated. Are uncorrelated, bivariate normal distributions or normal variables, normal distributions. Since they are bivariate normal with which are uncorrelated, it means they are also independent. This also we talked about earlier. Normal distributions. And hence they are independent. So therefore we can say half of x1 plus x2 and half of x1 minus x2 whole square. So now say this is the sample variance, this is the sample mean. For the case of n equal to 2, so they are independent. So these are independent. So this proves the result for n equal to 2. You can see the proof from any book. Okay. Otherwise, you can proceed similarly using induction. Same procedure. So just you have to take n up. You can assume that it's true for n, and then you can prove it for n+1 using same thing like covariance and this and that. So you can prove that indeed this x bar, the sample mean and sample variance are independent when they are drawn. The sample is drawn from normal distribution. Yeah, this is where I'll end, and tomorrow we'll see some applications of this, some problems, and then we'll start talking about central limit theorem of or law of large numbers. Yeah, I'll stop here. If you have any questions, you can ask. Otherwise, you can leave.